in ways that are both good and bad. So, last night, Israel announced that it would approve a ceasefire with Lebanon. It's really a ceasefire with Hezbollah. There's always this big issue with regard to the war in Lebanon for Israel, which is that the Lebanese government is basically a meat puppet for Hezbollah. So if you're going to war with Hezbollah, are you at war with the Lebanese government? Are you trying to strengthen parts of the Lebanese government at the expense of other parts of the Lebanese government, namely Hezbollah, which is not just a terrorist group, it's a political party in Lebanon, and the political party that is most in control of many of the military resources and provide an actual threat to the Lebanese armed forces? Yeah, so all of that's very complicated. Israel announced that it would approve a ceasefire with Lebanon. President Biden announced the ceasefire last night. He, of course, was very happy about this, but we'll explain the underlying dynamics. The reason the ceasefire got signed is because Israel just wants to get beyond Biden. It is that simple.
There it is, folks. Obviously, nobody said this before, was not in the media. The entire premise, this ceasefire was debated heavily in Israel, abroad. Is it a good deal for Israel, a bad deal, etc.? Ben Shapiro is basically saying, forget all that. This isn't a permanent peace treaty. This is a 60-day ceasefire because by the time the ceasefire ends, Biden is out, Trump is in, and there's a new reality on the ground. Great analysis by Ben Shapiro.
It is that simple. It's a 60-day ceasefire. There are 56 days until this schmuck leaves public office. That is not a coincidence.
Ben Shapiro does not like President Joe Biden, just to clarify.
Israel is simply attempting to get beyond the Biden presidency for a wide variety of reasons we'll discuss in a moment. Here is Joe Biden.
Just as the Lebanese people deserve a future of security and prosperity, so do the people of Gaza. They too deserve an end to the fighting and displacement. The people of Gaza have been through hell. Their world's absolutely shattered.
What a schmuck he is.
Far too many civilians in Gaza have suffered far too much. And Hamas has refused for months and months to negotiate a good faith ceasefire and a hostage deal. And so now Hamas has a choice to make. Their only way out is to release the hostages, including American citizens, which they hold. In the process, bring an end to the fighting, which would make possible a surge of humanitarian relief. Over the coming days, the United States will make another push with Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, Israel, and others to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza.
Did you just say Turkey? Turkey hates Israel more than any country in the world right now.
With the hostages released and the end of the war without Hamas in power, that becomes possible.
Okay, so let's point out at this point that his immediate turn from Lebanon to Gaza is a great indicator as to what Joe Biden is, which is a complete befuddled moron when it comes to foreign policy.
Wow, Ben Shapiro, not only does he hate Joe Biden, he does not respect him in the least.
And he says that he's going to attempt to achieve a ceasefire with the help of Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar. Those are all cutouts for the Iranian position at this point. Qatar was always a cutout for the Iranian position, which is why Hamas was housed there. Hamas leadership left Qatar and went to Turkey, which is another one of the nations that he has called. Turkey has said that Israel is conducting a genocide. That is said by the dictator Erdogan, who has been the provoker and the instigator of massive human carnage in the Middle East, including in Syria and including in Armenia. Egypt, meanwhile, will not open its border, the Rafah crossing, to allow any of the Palestinians out, even temporarily, so they can be in a safer place, because they don't want the Palestinians, not one of them. And those are the people who are going to be brokering some sort of deal in the Gaza Strip. Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Okay, so.
It's a great point, by the way. This past year, none of these countries have been able to do anything. Egypt has controls an entire border with Gaza, and they're not letting anybody out. And so, Ben is right here.
In order to understand the dynamics of this particular ceasefire deal, you have to see what everybody's saying about it. So what Biden is saying there is something that's slightly different from what Netanyahu is saying in Israel. So Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a statement last night, and he said, the duration of the ceasefire depends on what happens in Lebanon. We will enforce the agreement and respond forcefully to any violation. Together, we'll achieve victory. He said, we will complete the elimination of Hamas, bring back our abductees, ensure Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel, and safely return northern residents to their homes. The war will not end until all its goals are achieved, including the safe return of northern residents. This will happen just as it did in the south. To the residents of the north, I'm proud of you and your resilience. I'm fully committed to your security, rebuilding your communities, and securing your future. And then he suggested that a wide variety of achievements have been actually done by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, which of course is true. I mean, let's just point out that in Lebanon, Israel lost a grand total in terms of killed in action of 79 soldiers, while completely destroying 80% of Hezbollah's entire arsenal, killing all of its leadership, legitimately all of its leadership, like 3 levels deep, and wiping out its presence on Israel's northern border. It's an amazing military accomplishment.
It's true. Just to interrupt you for a second, it's totally true. I mean, it's almost impossible to totally root out a terrorist group. We saw with ISIS, we saw with Al Qaeda, we're seeing with Hamas, with Hezbollah. I mean, a year ago, all the experts were saying, "Oh, the war with Hezbollah, that's going to be the really terrible one. It's going to destroy half of Israel." I mean, obviously it was a tragedy. He said 79 soldiers were killed. Terrible tragedy. But people were predicting doom and gloom. People were predicting thousands of deaths. Hundreds of rockets rained down on Tel Aviv. And what ended up happening? We wiped out all their leaders. And they're basically a shell of what they used to be.
One of the great military accomplishments of modern history. So what exactly has Israel done according to Netanyahu? We destroyed significant portions of Iran's air defense, missile production capabilities, and key elements of its nuclear program. Preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons remains my top priority. So one of the things that's happening here is that Netanyahu is attempting to rearm, rest up forces in case of a potential conflict with Iran more directly if Iran continues to pursue a nuclear program. 2, Gaza. We dismantled Hamas brigades, according to Netanyahu, killed approximately 20,000 terrorists, eliminated senior leaders, and freed 154 hostages. We remain committed to bringing all abductees home and eradicating Hamas. So in other words, there's not going to be any sort of deal where Israel gives up control of the Gaza Strip to UNIFIL or to any other sort of Hamas cutout. 3, Judea and Samaria. We have neutralized hundreds of terrorists, destroyed terror infrastructure, and reached every stronghold of terror. So that's been a front that has largely been ignored by the international media.
It's true. People talk about the north and south. The center of Israel, if you just look at the map, it's kind of crazy. But, there's terrorist hotbeds in the center of Israel. Just yesterday, they were caught trying to smuggle in from Iran RPGs, drones, ammunition. It's crazy. That's the constant battle. That's the 24/7 battle. The north and the south is every few years, this and that. The center is the crazy part, and I don't think we've seen the end of that.
There have been a massive number of attempted terror attacks in the so-called West Bank, that's Judea and Samaria, against Jews who are living in those particular areas. And Israel has performed extraordinary anti-terror operations in places like Jenin and Nablus in order to ensure security. Yemen, says Netanyahu, we struck the Houthi-controlled port of Hodeidah with unprecedented force. Iraq, we successfully...
The Houthis, by the way, what a joke. They're like the JV team of terrorists. They keep trying to insert themselves in the conversation. They fire off a couple of drones, this and that. Israel wiped out their entire port. They've been very quiet since then, if you've noticed.
Boarded numerous drone attacks and continue to address challenges there. Syria, we systemically block Iran, Hezbollah, and the Syrian army from transferring weapons to Lebanon. Assad must understand he's playing with fire. So there he is threatening Assad, do not try to rearm Lebanon. We've disarmed Lebanon. We are not going to allow you to rearm Lebanon. And Lebanon.
Syria, another great example of, I wouldn't even call them wannabe terrorists. Syria, they're just happy to be alive. Assad is happy he's alive. He was propped up by multiple actors, namely Russia, now Iran. And so I don't actually think, Assad doesn't really want to provoke Israel. He knows that they can take him out in a second. It's that he doesn't really have a choice. If Iran says to him, hey, we're going to be shipping these, arms through your country, he's going to have to say yes. That's the issue with Assad. He's kind of stuck behind them, just like Lebanon.
Hezbollah attacked us on October 8th. It is no longer the same Hezbollah. We have set them back decades, eliminated Nasrallah and senior operatives, destroyed most of their rockets, dismantled their terror infrastructure near our border. Strategic targets across Lebanon have been hit. Beirut trembles. So he says that when it comes to the ceasefire, he says there are 3 reasons they're going along with the ceasefire. 1, focus on the Iranian threat. So again, the idea here is that Israel needs to rearm and rest up and remain fresh and consolidate resources for a possible conflict with Iran, not just via its proxies, but if Iran accelerates its nuclear program. 2, replenishing and upgrading our forces with advanced weaponry to ensure the safety of our soldiers and strengthen our capabilities. Okay, that right there is a critique of Biden.
This is the crazy part. This is the media mostly ignored this because it's not public knowledge, but Ben Shapiro is about to say something shocking.
The reason they have to replenish and upgrade forces with advanced weaponry is because Biden's been slow walking this. Basically, what Netanyahu is doing here is he's attempting to allow for the Trump administration to come in and remove the arms embargo that Biden has placed on Israeli soldiers. I happen to know from insiders on the ground over here that a significant number of Israeli troops have died due to lack of resources, thanks to the Biden administration slow walking basic things. Like, for example, artillery rounds or bulldozers that are necessary to take out infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Okay, so Netanyahu is saying openly here that Biden has basically slow walked the aid, and we're getting past Biden. And finally, isolating Hamas. Since the second day of the war, Netanyahu says Hamas has relied on Hezbollah joining the fight. With Hezbollah out of the equation, Hamas is now left isolated, allowing us to increase pressure on them and aid in the sacred mission of freeing our hostages.
This is a tough one. Israel has not really succeeded in the last half a year in terms of freeing hostages, and Hezbollah was applying pressure for an entire year, and then in the last 3 months they started to back down significantly once Israel started to attack them head on, and so this is a risk assessment that both Ben Shapiro and Netanyahu are making here, that it will be easier or more straightforward to make a deal with a Hamas who no longer has any friends left in the fight.
Okay, he is right about that, by the way. Hezbollah said at the very beginning of the war, when they opened up rocket fire on northern Israel, Nasrallah, who's now dead, the leader of Hezbollah, he said, the Lebanese front will not rest until a truce is reached in Gaza. Well, I'm wrong. You're resting now, and the truce is not reached in Gaza. So now it turns out that Hamas is isolated. Now, that does not mean that Joe Biden is not going to attempt to force Israel and cudgel Israel into some sort of agreement with regard to Hamas. One of the things that Netanyahu was attempting to avoid here was the U.S. on Biden's way out, abstaining from some sort of UN Security Council resolution condemning Israel for its action inside Lebanon.
This is another aspect, the UN stuff. I mean, America can always hold that card over Israel. America and Israel are best of friends to a degree, and occasionally America, as we saw with Obama in his final semester as president, he played the UN card and they abstained from a crucial vote that was criticizing Israel. And I could very well, this is speculation, right? Ben Shapiro is speculating here. This isn't, confirmed public news, but it's very, very possible that the Biden administration said to Israel, if you don't sign this deal, we are going to do something in the UN. And unfortunately, that strategy will work from time to time.
And probably the bargain here was he gives Biden the so-called win of a ceasefire in the north, and then Biden vetoes any attempted UN Security Council resolution with regard to Lebanon or Gaza. Now the question is going to be whether Biden even remotely keeps his word. I would assume that that's the deal that's happening behind closed doors there. Are you tired of